It's 2020, people. Where you been?
Where have you been? Ladies and gentlemen, in this war-torn East Coast area that we live in right now, with nobody having power from South Carolina to Rhode Island, I'm Eric Planey.
Hi, I'm Lucas Fico.
And this is the power condensed version of Pirates of Clean Tech.
I thought it was the Blackout version.
The Blackout version.
Yeah, the Blackout
right?
edition. Yes.
The Blackout version with two Blackbeards.
Blackout episode.
Yar.
Arr.
Arg. So happy to have in the Planey household today, Lucas Finco, my partner in crime. Obviously, everybody is being impacted by the storm that went through yesterday, including ourselves. Both of us were without power, but thankfully, the prior owners of our house installed a Generac generator. No shameless plug there. And so we have partial power. So today's going to be a little bit different, probably a little bit of a condensed version. We had a great guest lined up for today, but just due to logistics, we decided to postpone that great guest till next week. So we're going back to a little bit of our old style, which is the two of us hemming and hawing about articles related to clean tech, sustainability, and ESG. And we'll get back on our new and improved format next week. So hope everyone out there is safe. Lucas, want to talk a little bit about our setup and how you can find us and what we do?
Oh yeah, so we're multicast on many podcast networks, so you can probably find us on your favorite podcast site. Just search for Pirates of Clean Tech and hit the follow button, and then you'll get notifications when our podcast shows up there. We're also on YouTube if you want to see our pretty faces, which I sure can certainly recommend. Pirates of Clean Tech, again, you can click subscribe, and then you have to hit the little alarm bell button, and that lets you know when our latest video is up, so you can be the first to know what's going on in the world of clean tech. Also, feel free to hit the like button. That helps us out. And leave a comment if you have any comments or suggestions. We'd like to hear from you.
Absolutely. And jokes aside about everything going on, we want to give a shout out to all our utility workers right now, because there are people from all over the United States that have probably made their way to the East Coast to help with relief efforts. And it is not an easy job. It is a thankless job. Everyone wants power yesterday. So I think really to our utility workers, because we talk a lot about the utility industry, but they are the unsung heroes. So let's give them a shout out. Please show, if you're on the East Coast and when you get your power back, please send a tweet to your utility and give them a shout out to those workers. They would appreciate it. And we're doing everything on our end of it to work on grid resiliency. It's a slow process. And so with that, we probably should go into our articles and talk about how we can make our world a little bit better using clean tech and sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, I can add to that too. I think there's more than 1 million customers out in New Jersey, which is crazy. That's like Sandy level. So it's going to be a while. They have thousands and thousands of trucks coming in from other areas. So that's really great. That should speed efforts quite a bit. And even on the way over here, I saw a helicopter doing line inspection on a transmission line.
Wow.
So there's a lot going on. There's a lot being mobilized. I know it seems like nothing's happening because your power's not coming on, but there's a lot going on, and they're working as hard as they can to get everybody hooked back up. I know I helped out with the Sandy efforts, so I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes 24/7. A lot of trucks mobilized, a lot of guys working hard, and gals working very hard to make sure the power comes back up. So yeah, thank you to the utilities.
Yeah, and for people at home, I certainly recommend, if you have the means and the resources, to think about having a backup system, whether or not it's a generator you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot, or having a system installed, or even a power wall. Just there's going to be a lot of volatility, unfortunately, due to climate change and whatever. So, take care of your families, and God bless utility workers and everyone involved in first responding on this.
Yeah, and if you want to go clean, you can even buy they call them solar generators. I don't know why they call them that. It's just a battery pack with an inverter and a charge controller. You can plug solar into it. It's just a battery, and it charges up, and then you can plug your devices into there. So I think they're on Amazon. You can find them online if you want to go clean tech.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, for the Better Homes and Gardens side of people, pull out your Christmas solar lights. And if you have solar-powered Christmas lights, drop them into a glass vase, put them outside during the day, and if you're without power, they're a great way to put some, very hygge, to use the Danish term, hygge charm into your, instead of just burning candles. So that was my little idea, and it worked out quite well in the rooms that we had no power yesterday.
Cool. That's a great idea.
All right.
I like it.
Now let's get to the serious stuff. You want to go first this time?
Okay. Well, I don't know. Whoever's up first. Here you go.
All right. Well, I have 4 articles today. 2 of them are somewhat tied together. Great article here by John Funk from July 30th out of Energy News Network, energynews.us, titled, near and dear to my heart, Ohio lawmakers want puzzling, quote unquote, offshore wind ruling revisited. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, we talked about good friends of mine at LEEDCO, the Lake Erie Energy Development Corporation, who's putting in the first freshwater or potentially first freshwater wind farm in North America off the coast of Cleveland on Lake Erie. These guys have been slogging through it and been doing a great job lining up everything they need to in order to execute on this. They've had resistance, and unfortunately, there was a conversation, an article we revealed a couple weeks ago that talked about bird migration studies from Canadian geese and other birds making their way from Canada south. This had to be studied because there was a potential negative impact. Well, I think there's a little bit more to the story, and this article does a great job of revealing it. And the note that, of course, I don't have my notebook in front of me, but what really struck me about this is a coalition of 32 state lawmakers in Northeast Ohio, in the Cleveland, Akron, Youngstown area, have all gotten together in a strongly worded letter to Sam Randazzo, chair of the Ohio Power Sitting Board, telling him that the poison pill that was put in place as a, quote, compromise is not going to fly. And 2 things about that. One is the compromise was that the Ohio Power Sitting Board said it's okay to install these wind turbines, but for 8 months of the year, you're going to have to shut them down from dusk to dawn to not impact bird migration. Well, wind power isn't just something that's done by the generosity of our society. It has to be done in conjunction with market economics dictating a rate of return for the investors. And there was no way that such a shutdown from dusk to dawn 8 months of the year was going to lead to this thing generating positive ROI. So 32 lawmakers got together. They're questioning whether or not that this is more than just bird migration motivated, but it's political motivated. I won't tie anything to anything else going on in the state of Ohio right now. I'll leave that for all you guys to investigate. But what I really loved about this was 32 state lawmakers, both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans. And one of them correctly pointed out a state like Ohio is going to lose the innovation game if it gives a perception to the rest of the United States it's closed for innovation. And what really gets me is being a native Ohioan, if this attitude was took place in 1903, the Wright brothers would have permanently set up shop probably in Kitty Hawk instead of setting up in Dayton, Ohio, where they're from. And Dayton, Ohio is one of the largest magnets of aerospace supply chain in the world right now. So people really better be smart about this. Hats off to the 32 lawmakers who are getting together questioning the sitting board. They're going to reconvene in mid-August. But here at Pirates of Clean Tech, especially because we love the seas, we love fresh water, I really want to see this push through. And anything we can do to support that effort to get LEEDCO operational is something I am 100% behind.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with the basic premise of this complaint, though. A lot of wind is driven by solar heating, so you'll see it correlated well with solar, except for like storms that roll through in the middle of the night. So I don't know if they're losing a lot of power in the nighttime hours, but I don't know. I'd have to do a study to really know.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with that. Maybe we're in person, so this will be a very confrontational Pirates episode. I understood that the plain states, that the onshore plain states wind generation primarily takes place more at night.
Oh.
So I think there are studies, and also just knowing the Great Lakes, as you probably are a Wisconsin guy, you would know a little bit too.
Yeah.
The Great Lakes always has a constant wind, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I always felt it. So I think there's probably enough out there that it would cause a detriment. And admit, it's always about the incremental margin, right?
Right.
So, you got to have that incremental capability to generate power at night. And especially if storage is coming online throughout the United States, it's good to get it through. So, yeah, maybe 15 years ago, this would not have been as much of an issue. But I think with storage coming online, with transmission getting better, having those economics for nighttime is a big deal. And again, this is also just a pilot. I mean, I think they're talking about 4 to 6 turbines in the beginning. So probably having that nighttime power generation is going to help cover overhead that's only being covered by 4 to 6 turbines.
Yeah, and they talk about all this crazy stuff like they're going to install state-of-the-art radar to detect birds.
and a collision detection system. I'm like, that's a little bit of a
Well, like I think the truth is on that one, if anyone remembers the fantastic episode of Family Ties where Alex is trying to convince a couple girls that he's with the Air Force and that they're invading Canada. The state of this ART radar system was really developed by the CIA to keep an eye on our Canadian friends from potential air invasion. So it's nothing to do with bird migration.
Oh, okay, I see. Oh, we just borrowed that.
But jokes aside, this is a great article, only for the fact that I really appreciate Energy News Network for keeping this out in front of people so that we, as supporters of offshore wind, especially in the Rust Belt, which I say with affection, can come to fruition. So let's keep pushing forward on it.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
Move to this one.
Yeah. This one I like. First off, I like to try and find different sources that shows that the impact of sustainability is going beyond just, green media. And Forbes has actually been stepping up over the last couple of years, and Fortune and a few others. So this article is out of Forbes. It's actually an op-ed from July 28th, 2020, and it's called Clean Energy's Jobs and Sustainability Must Anchor a Green Recovery. And it is, the contributor is Jean-Marc Oliguiar, which I'm probably not saying that right, and I believe he is the head of Europe for a major consulting firm. So what I like about this, again, and I've referenced this a few times, is that he is drawing upon all the great innovation coming out of Europe and Asia in green technology, in diversified sources of power generation supply chain, but it's being put together as part of a $2 trillion recovery package in Europe post-COVID crisis. And again, I don't have my notes in front of me, but early data from this industry action group, I think you just skewed away. Yeah, so this industry action group created by the World Economic Forum is revealing the ambitious potential of green recovery. And Vestas' CEO, Vestas, the great Danish wind turbine manufacturer, is talking about the fact that potential investment could create 480,000 jobs by 2030 if the 3 trillion green recovery plan comes together. So we're talking about, up to even 1.9 million new jobs in Europe. This is what innovation brings about. This is why we were talking about in the last article, why state lawmakers in Ohio don't want Ohio to perceive to be in a lack of innovation type of state. Okay, we need to get on top of this. We need infrastructure investment across the board. It is a fantastic way to help get us out of the COVID crisis. Doesn't get us completely out of the way, but then that money should make its way into consumer spending, into consumer savings, and it helps prop up the rest of the economy that's faltering right now. And we're doing so in a way that is taking away old school investments that no longer are contributing to the future of both society and market returns. The more we go green, the better we're going to be. I like this article from Forbes. I think they did a great job of addressing it. Again, it's very similar to other articles we have, but I feel like we need to pound this further. And, this is the type of stuff we want to follow.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Construction has a fantastic multiplier in the economy for benefits. And to me, it remains the number one way to stimulate an economy, right? Because you not only get the benefits of what you're building, the jobs are generally well paying, and they tend to spend that money in the economy really well. So it's a fantastic opportunity. I think it's much better than sending people checks. Because what are you going to do with $1,200? Like, okay, that's great, but it doesn't pay my bills. It doesn't give me a recurring income. And a lot of people, like, what are they going to do with it? So I really like that we can rebuild, and we should do it the right way.
Right. And to your point, when an economic crisis hits, it is essential that Congress and state legislators and community legislators get together, and they do send checks out, and they create that floor that we don't drop below. Because in a crisis, we learned this from 2008 the hard way, we didn't react fast enough. So we did react very fast in putting a floor together by getting checks out to people, but that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for our budget deficits, et cetera. We want to help transition the economy. So we're not there yet. So just kind of going off a little bit, I hope Congress gets their act together and starts getting funding to people in an emergency basis as they still need it. And we're just not past the COVID crisis yet. However, this is the way we get out of it, and this is the way we make America stronger. And take note, we're talking about Europe and Asia again. So we're going to be left behind. Do we want to be left behind? Absolutely not. But it's essential. We need to keep moving forward, and we have to look at the great examples from other continents.
Yeah, they even talk about South Korea here. Yeah.
from 2008, which is interesting.
South Korea has done a fantastic job, greening their economy. I mean, they're innovators across the spectrum, right? Look at LG. LG is building a second battery plant in the United States right now, a gigafactory.
Right.
So, well, there are examples out there, and we need to push forward. So, to our legislators listening in on this podcast, step it up, folks. We need to. So, I'm good on that one.
All right, cool.
So my next two are, I haven't talked about our passion, really, electric vehicles, in a couple weeks. And I wanted to talk a little bit about an article that came out of the Detroit Free Press. Fantastic art newspaper, always did a great job covering the auto industry and continues to do so. Jamie LaRue on August 1st. Would General Motors or GM spin off electric vehicles? CEO says nothing is off the table. And boy, this one got me fired up a little bit. So I have always been a General Motors fan. I've been a Pontiac guy my entire life. I grew up in a GM town. GM means a lot to me. And just for full disclosure, I am a shareholder in General Motors, albeit a very small one. GM, of course, reported an $800 million loss in the last quarter, but that was actually better than Wall Street expectations. But the stock didn't do anything. And there's kind of an implied implication here that Ford and GM can do gangbuster things in both technology and financial performance, and it doesn't move this needle on share price, whereas a Tesla, can be challenged financially, and it's in the stratosphere right now, having a higher market capitalization than Toyota. So Deutsche Bank analysts came out and said, maybe we should consider spinning off the electric vehicle side of things. And of course, on a shareholder standpoint, there's some value to that. I won't disagree with that, or potentially value, and General Motors has a fiduciary responsibility to look at all options. But I think we need to look at a holistic picture of the auto industry, its impact on society, and quit looking at it from a shareholder standpoint, but from a stakeholder standpoint. General Motors has a deep impact on the economy. Every time a factory closes in the United States, it impacts that local economy on a multiplier, not just the jobs lost from there, but the supply chain jobs and the trickle-down jobs. So, probably 4 jobs are lost for every General Motors job lost in the assembly line. I don't believe GM should be a government-sponsored organization sustaining job. They need to be market competitive, and I think they're doing a fantastic job of converting their technologies from old-school combustion engine-based to electric vehicle and hybrid-based. But it's not going to happen overnight, and public perception of electric vehicles as the next way to go is also not going to happen overnight. So I don't think it's in the best interest of our society to spin out, just for shareholders, General Motors into an electric vehicle company and an old ICE engine company. I think that just hurts all parties in the long run. And so let General Motors do what they're doing, do it well, and eventually that value will be picked up by shareholders and will be seen, and they're going to move the needle forward. So let's not push something that doesn't need to be pushed at this time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't understand why Tesla's multiple is where it is. I don't understand valuation. And they're struggling where Ford is strong, which is building cars and getting them out the door. So, I mean, to me, Ford and GM are in a better position because they know how to build cars and they're good at it. And they've been doing it for a century. And, for them, making a change to electric is much smaller than somebody starting from scratch with an electric vehicle and not having any facilities, right? Like a lot of these companies are. They're getting huge valuations. So I agree with you. We should not let crazy valuations on a stock drive decision making, right? And we should be doing what's best for the EV market and what's best for consumers and what's best for people on Earth, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think Lucas and I think we're both on the same page. I am 100% behind what Elon Musk and Tesla have done. They've changed the industry narrative, absolutely. They brought Tesla and electric vehicles to the average person to even think about understanding. And it's forced the GMs, the Fords, the BMWs, and all others to go down this road. So, they're doing a wonderful job. And I think healthy competition is important, and I'm happy to see the big three really react. I took a ride about a year ago in Chrysler's battery plug-in minivan, and it was an incredible experience. So there are great vehicles out there. We don't need to be splitting companies up just for the sake of valuation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then my fourth article I'll get through really quick is kind of in tangent to this. So, those of us that are Gen Xers always think of Sony as just a great innovator because everybody's first Walkman, cassette Walkman, was a Sony. Everyone's first CD Walkman was probably a Sony. Sony is a company that, you know, probably fell on hard times about 10, 15 years ago, lost its perception as being the great innovator. And then here they are. They're coming out with a Vision S prototype, and they're taking it from the CES trade show in Las Vegas stage to on-road testing in Tokyo. So this is an article from Car and Driver magazine. I grew up reading Car and Driver. I had a subscription as a little boy. I'm so mad I got rid of all those boxes of Car and Drivers that I had. But so I wanted to really bring up a good Car and Driver story, and this just ties with it. So we see the Fords and the GMs, you know, shifting and creating great electric vehicles based upon their industry know-how. But that's not taken away from a phenomenal electronics company like Sony, who also has the capability of jumping in. Because electric vehicles have a different set of technologies, a different set of risks that need to be mitigated, and an electronics company like Sony should have that opportunity to put an electric vehicle out there and let the consumer decide. Again, great healthy competition, sounds like a great vehicle, sounds like Sony is really driving this forward. We know that Apple and Google also talked about making a car at one point on their own, an autonomous vehicle or electric vehicle or a combination thereof. And those projects seem to have been shelved or delayed, especially on the autonomous side. But someone like Sony has the wherewithal, the innovation, and is part of Japan Inc.'s great technology innovation platform as a society and economy. And they're going forward with it. So I thought that would just tie really well with the GM story.
Yeah, this is really cool. I mean, it sounds like they're vague about whether they're going to build it or not, but it's still good to see another large actor in the EV stage. So
yeah, and it could just possibly be that the technology that Sony puts in it is used in the supply chain for other Japanese and, you know, European and North American OEMs. So, you know, again, and that's a win-win for everybody. So go Sony, man. Really happy to hear about this. I hope they have a cassette tech in the car.
Yeah, I mean, it says they're already in the sensor market for the electric vehicles. So they have 33 of their own sensors in the car, radar, LiDAR, cameras. So yeah, they're already kind of a supplier. So it wouldn't be too far for them.
Yep. So those are my stories, quick and dirty, but I think they just covered a nice little spectrum from macroeconomic to financial to technologies.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I only have 3 stories. There were a bunch that came out like in the last day or two, but we'll cover them next week because they're very interesting. So this is my first one out of the Houston Chronicle. This is written by Sergio Chapa from the 30th. Halliburton launches a new tech lab to speed development of clean energy. So this to me is like the final shoe dropping. This is the last soldier on the field putting his gun down, right? You know, so these guys are hardcore oil services companies, right? They've been pro-oil. I don't want to say too much. And so they're finally coming around to new tech. They're going to develop clean energy. I think there was another one, Baker Hughes, also a big oil company, oil services company, starting a lab to do R&D in clean tech. So this is awesome to see these guys. I hope they get into, you know, building and deploying clean infrastructure, the supply chain, logistics. I mean, these guys are so good at all that stuff. If they move to clean tech, they could just kill it, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, people didn't realize this. When I was doing oil and gas, shale oil and gas economic development in Ohio during the Marcellus Utica boom 10 years ago, everyone was saying, well, you know, look at Houston. They're oil and gas capital of the world. You know, we need to have an impact with them. And I used to say to them, Houston doesn't sell themselves as the oil and gas capital of the world. They sell themselves as the energy capital of the world. And that was really, give some credit to T. Boone Pickens there, because he was one of the innovators on wind farm development, right? And so he made that conversion, and he brought and pulled Houston alongside with it. And I think the statistic was, outside of California, the number 2 car market for Teslas in the United States was Houston.
Oh, cool.
Right? And so when I went to Houston on business trips all the time, you see Volts and Bolts and Teslas everywhere. So to your point, absolutely, the BPs and Shells are all looking at the fact that, you know, there is peak demand out there. You know, they always talk about peak supply. There's peak demand right now in oil and gas. And so they're looking 30 years out. And so it's only natural that the Halliburtons and the Baker Hughes, and, you know, Halliburton always had that reputation as the Dick Cheney involved, you know, government contractor, et cetera. We don't want to get into that, but we want to talk about the fact that these companies are all recognizing the fact that they're going to incubate clean energy tech. And that's just going to speed up the process. It's all about keeping 2 degrees centigrade increase from happening by 2050. And the Halliburton coming on board, is going to help accelerate the probability of success.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. The more these oil company CEOs see themselves as energy company CEOs, the windows will just open for them. The growth, the possibilities, the innovation.
Right.
I mean, their stock price, everything will just take off. As soon as they get out of the oil and gas box and into the energy world, I mean, the companies are just going to take off.
And, we know that a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs working on a single focused technology. And so you can look at the fact that this could be competition, but also look at the fact that at one point you want to sell your company. You want to grow it. You want to sell that technology. You want to find a multiplier out there. So now with Baker Hughes and Halliburton, these guys are expert at M&A. They're expert at mergers and acquisitions and buying technology. So it creates a greater universe for you to sell your wares to. So don't look at it necessarily as competition. Look at it as collaboration. And, we're probably going to get some criticism for that because a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're not green enough. No, we want to be smart enough. We want to find the best path to getting to sustainability and these companies converting. Don't ever forget the fact that, Nokia started out as a kitchen cabinet manufacturer and they converted to cell phones, right? Because they saw the writing on the wall. So if they can go from cabinets to cell phones, then these guys can absolutely do the same thing, going from oil and gas to clean.
Yeah, I think so too. And so we welcome them. This one also out of the Energy News Network, that's interesting. In North Carolina, Duke Energy Group's reached a truce on the Duke Energy Grid Plan. This is from Elizabeth Oates from July 27th. They had 3 years ago, they had a grid modernization plan from Duke. And when people looked at it, it didn't much make sense, right? Because it ended up being odd things like tree trimming and distribution hardware upgrades or something like this. So they pushed back. They wanted to see a modernization of the grid and not just routine maintenance, which they call it. So they've come back with a new grid plan. Yeah, here we go. The bulk of it was devoted to burying power lines and geometries. That was the old one. That's not a grid modernization plan, right? That's not what they were looking for. So they came back the following year, and now they have a much better plan with, quote, a lot of improvements, what we see here. Here we go. So the strategy was explicitly linked to separate efforts to install vehicle charging stations, EV charging, right? Connect battery storage. This is much better than burying power lines, automated voltage conservation system. So this is much more of the kind of grid improvements we need for EVs, for renewable power, and for a future that will make more sense for Duke.
Yeah, I like this article too, and I like the fact that you're touching on the technologies that can implement it in kind of this 2.0. What I liked about it is the fact that they're, from educated powers that be in both government and regulatory agencies, that there was a pushback on the 1.0 plan. Like they were smart enough to recognize. And that's not just coming from, the bureaucrats, that's coming from consumers and citizens and watchdog groups who looked at this and said, this is not right. And they were able to enact change, and the change wasn't simply confrontational, it was compromise based. So Duke, again, they got to make money for their shareholders. They have to take care of day-to-day stuff like tree trimming and probably burying lines, right? That's just the reality of it. But they also recognize the fact that somebody is putting, the proverbial weapon to their head and saying, you got to think smarter and more efficiently. And I actually think that creates a better company, and it's better for all stakeholders. And going back to the GM article, it's better for shareholders too. So this is a modern plan. It's a great 2.0. It's forward thinking, and it's going to lead to a better, stakeholder IRR, stakeholder return.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So this is a good development. So we'd like to see utilities coming along. My last article here was about California nearing a tipping point on all electric regulations for new buildings. So this is very interesting to me. I've been thinking about this a lot myself, actually, recently. PG&E has thousands of miles of natural gas distribution pipelines, and they're calling for no new gas hookups for new buildings. So I've actually thought about this a lot. Like, I have natural gas in my home, and I have 2 appliances that use it. So why do I have it? Why do we have 2 energy distribution systems? We have a gas system and we have an electric system. why am I paying to support these two systems? It's crazy. Think about all the assets that are deployed in two redundant energy systems. I mean, so coming from Con Ed, we actually know quite a lot about this because they have a redundant energy system, which is failing miserably, the steam system, which loses customers every year. And they can't ever turn it off because the customers that remain on it depend on it. And now they're stuck with this failing, degrading asset that they have to spend all this money on to maintain. And it doesn't make any sense. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Why do we have two energy distribution systems? Why are we paying for two energy distribution systems? We could have one, mainly that's electric, that we could green at the pace, at whatever pace we're able to achieve. And then we have a mix of renewables and existing generation technologies that changes over time, and the end product doesn't change. You get energy through electricity in your home, and you don't have to pay for a second distribution system.
You know, I also think you bring up great points. I do understand two systems in parts of the United States, like where we grew up, where natural gas is a cheap source of power, cheap source of heating. You know, there's a feeling that gas-powered heating feels more comfortable, et cetera. And I actually agree with that. It's probably just based upon how I grew up with things. And we're a little bit more climate moderate year-round, like California. I don't think having redundant systems is necessary. The other part too is I just think there's geographic and geological volatility in California, wildfires, earthquakes, et cetera. And I just feel like those natural gas lines are a little bit more at risk, especially the fact is gas pipelines and distribution systems get dated and they require a lot of maintenance CapEx. So if you can actually start going all electric and you start turning those off, I think from a grid resiliency and consumer safety standpoint, I think having one electric system in California probably makes more sense. So again, happy to see this. Again, smart thinking, smart utilization of limited resources creates a more green society as life goes on, as time goes on.
Well, if you think about it, they've had challenges both on the gas side. They had that gas explosion a couple of years ago.
Right.
And on the electric side with the canyons.
Right.
And the wildfires. So if they were to get rid of one of those systems, use the money to make the other one more resilient, that might be a very wise choice.
And I'm still not convinced that distributed solar is the way to go, but you got to figure many people in California are going to go rooftop solar, and they're going to have to work on the technology in which that rooftop solar can be resiliency in a situation like a wildfire or earthquake, and that you can actually use your own panels to power your own battery and to turn it off the grid, right? Because right now, as we've talked about in the past, everyone's got rooftop solar, thinks when the power goes out, you're fine, but that's not the case. Everything gets shut down for grid safety reasons.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, and that's also very upsetting to me. Why can I not go out right now and buy solar, battery, and an off-grid system?
Right.
I mean, like nobody even sells it.
Right.
How can that be? How could that not have been created like 20 years ago?
Right.
So that's a little upsetting, and we have seen companies start to offer that, but it's like, oh, it's 2020, people. Where you been?
Where have you been? So, good article. I thought that was a great one. So, nice topic to cover.
Yeah, so that's it for our blackout interrupted week.
Next week will probably be locusts, coming down the Hudson Valley into New Jersey. But this is an abbreviated one. This is a little bit more our old format, but we've had such a great time with our prior guests that we're going to continue the guest format going forward. We've got some great ones lined up. We're going to be wrapping up season 1, I guess we call it, in a couple weeks. And then we'll be soon after with season 2. And it's going to be really good because we're just going to try and make you, the listening audience, as educated as much as possible about different areas of clean energy and sustainability. And we're going to have guests that represent various governments, technologies, and consulting and capital. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we were supposed to have H.G. Chisel from Advanced Energy Group, which is a cool group. I can't wait for you guys to learn more about it. Can't wait. You can Google Advanced Energy Group. I think it's goadvancedenergy.com. Really great place if you're a stakeholder in the clean energy industry. You definitely want to get involved with that. So we'll have him on next week. He's great to talk to. He knows everybody. He knows everything. He's great to have on. So.
Yeah, so it's better to have him on in real dedicated time than trying to slip him in, while we're crushed with power outages across the spectrum. So again, everyone, please go onto our various forums, both YouTube and our podcast forum. Also our Twitter page, which I'm trying to get up to date, @Clean Pirates. And we appreciate any feedback that you guys have for Lucas and myself. And thank you again. Our support continues to grow every week, and it's really because of everyone out there in podcast land and YouTube land.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody watching and following and commenting. So yeah, click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast site or on YouTube. So that helps us out.
Well, with that, we have some appetizers waiting for us downstairs.
Yes.
Thanks to Mrs. Planey. Everyone, please stay safe with the continuing days of the blackout. Hopefully, by the time this airs, everyone has power restored and we get back to our normal lives that we're going through in 2020. So I'm Eric Planey.
I'm Lucas Pinko. Thanks
We're
for
the
watching.
Pirates. Yar.
Arr.
Arr.
Arr.